generalizations have been made and what specific comments you can make about this autopsy.
Yes, sir. If I could have the power to the slide projector, please.
It's on the front.
There you go. And dim light. There we go. Thank you. The focus of the medical examiner's office is not so much on the principles involved other than the victim. And that the death of Lieutenant Oliver is a study into itself. It requires a knowledge of the crime scene. It requires knowledge of the actual autopsy. It requires knowledge of the ballistics as they pertain to his case. Many things have been said that upon my review of the autopsy, many things have been said in public that patently were not true. The focus of the medical examiner's office is on the truth of the situation, not the press releases. And as such, I essentially reviewed the autopsy and reworked much of the detail that I think Dr. Bell would have applied to this autopsy, because I'm very familiar with his technique and very familiar with his handwriting, and he was my mentor in the years that he trained me up until his death in 1987. Here, the autopsy is performed not just to establish a cause of death or a manner of death. A gunshot wound to the chest in a homicide manner goes without much investigation. The autopsy is done to develop specifics so that they can avoid the generalizations that we've heard so much about lately. Basically, the autopsy is going to be the most important source of information in this entire case. The wound has a profile. That wound profiling was developed by the Army under Colonel Fackler to look at the types of damages that different types of projectiles produce in the body. Dr. Bell, and Dr. Wecht, and Dr. Sperry, and myself, who've all looked at this case, I believe are in agreement that the wound profile is such that it suggests a projectile that did not leave any bullet fragments in the body. Now, most commonly that would be associated with a non-deforming, non-fragmenting projectile, much like a military full metal jacket bullet. Regardless, however, I believe that the silver tip ammunition that has been alluded was in Mr. Workman's gun actually did produce the wound to Lieutenant Oliver's body. In this case, the bullet would exit intact. It may be deformed, but it would essentially be intact. The issue of the exit wound size is essentially immaterial. I believe that the reports may have been misread either from the transcripts or from a faulty Xerox copy, but in essence, the wound itself is of ample size to allow the passage of a .45 caliber bullet. It measures 0.21 by 0.64 inches, and it is a gaping wound. The skin ruptures in front of a bullet before it exits, and this skin is stretched, and it would be stretched sufficiently at these dimensions to allow the passage of the bullet. Also, according to the FBI studies that have been produced studying the effectiveness of the .45 ACP silver tip manufactured by Winchester for use in law enforcement carry, they have noted that these rounds have a propensity to expand, truly, but they also have a propensity to turn sideways or perhaps even go backwards. Additionally, if the bullet goes through an intermediate target, if they pick up debris in the nose, then they expand less than under ideal circumstances. They also penetrate more deeply than they would if they had fully expanded. This is the copy of the report of investigation by the medical examiner that Dr. Bell prepared at his own hand. There are two separate independent documents produced by the medical examiner's office on the death of Lieutenant Oliver. The first is a short form called Report of Investigation by the County Medical Examiner. In this form, Dr. Bell did in his own hand draw the gunshot wound with the dimensions of 0.21 by 0.64. Plain and obvious to see for anyone looking at that copy. Dr. Bell also prepared an autopsy report depicting the entrance wound and exit wound as well. Again, in his own hand, he drew the exit wound and added the dimensions 0.21 by 0.64. There's no controversy